Yesterday I made a video talking about James Gunn, the head of DC Studios and director of Superman, firing back at Zack Snyder fans claiming that they are going to review bomb Superman. Well, in that same interview, he fired a couple shots at his former employer and current competition. All that and more in today's video. In an interview with Rolling Stone, James Gunn talked about a whole bunch of topics, and a lot of it related to upcoming DC information, but some of it also tied into his Marvel past. Now, just a quick recap on James Gunn's career. He signed on to direct Guardians of the Galaxy for Marvel Studios back in 2012, shortly after the release of The Avengers. This was his first big studio movie. Gunn was mostly a screenwriter throughout the 2000s, but was becoming a fan favorite due to movies like Slither and Super, which, quick aside, if you haven't seen those movies and you like James Gunn's work, you are doing a huge disservice to yourself. So getting somebody for these stranger cult movies was a really weird decision at the time for Disney to make. But James Gunn had the backing of Avengers director Joss Whedon, and this allowed James Gunn to make the exact movie he wanted to make with the first Guardians of the Galaxy. And I genuinely think that hiring a director like Gunn really set Marvel Studios on the right path for how they were planning Phase 3 of the MCU. The hiring of both him and the Russo brothers, who really created their own vision for what they wanted a Marvel movie to be, rather than finding just a director for hire, like what they ended up getting with Thor: The Dark World, helped to shape Phase 3 and the beginning of Phase 4 into being more creator-driven. The decisions were made by the people making the movies rather than any executive behind the scenes. Of course, there still was studio interference here and there, but the personality of the filmmakers were shining through a lot more than what we saw in something like Thor: The Dark World. And this ended up paying off big for Marvel. Guardians of the Galaxy received critical acclaim, was the highest grossing movie in 2014 domestically, and the third highest grossing movie worldwide. And people were speculating in the lead up to release that Guardians of the Galaxy would be Marvel's first big miss. It was a property that people were not as familiar with compared to the other characters Marvel was making movies about. And its success led to James Gunn getting the green light for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, where he would have full creative control. Of course, Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige would give him suggestions and notes, but ultimately he was making the movies that he wanted to make, with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 also being a critical and commercial success. This led to speculation that Gunn would be heavily involved in the post-Infinity saga of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The Guardians of the Galaxy were going to cross over with the Avengers in Infinity War and Endgame, with James Gunn having a hand in writing some dialogue for Infinity War. In the aftermath of Volume 2 being released, James Gunn announced that work would begin on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 immediately for a projected 2020 release date. This meant that at the time, Disney was planning on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 being the opening movie of Phase 4, followed by other movies that were being planned that we would eventually see, like Black Widow, Shang-Chi, and Eternals. This all came to an end though in July of 2018. Some off-color jokes James Gunn made on Twitter prior to his hiring by Disney from 2008 to 2012 resurfaced online, which led to Disney making an extremely impulsive and short-sighted decision by firing James Gunn. And this pushed James Gunn right into the arms of DC. The state of DC at that time was pretty messy. Their success was hit or miss depending on the movie, but James Gunn was a huge get for the studio at that time. He was apparently offered several different projects, including a Superman movie, but he decided instead to write and direct a reboot follow-up to 2016 Suicide Squad, a movie that was really aping off the success of his first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, which this and large public outcry for his rehiring at Marvel led to Disney getting in talks with James Gunn again and rehiring him as the writer-director for Guardians of the Galaxy 3, following his work on the Suicide Squad. But while he was away from Marvel Studios, things got very messy on the corporate end. Disney was demanding more content from Marvel in order to fill out Disney+. Now, James Gunn did contribute to Disney+ while he was working on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, with the addition of the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. But that wasn't something Disney was demanding. That was an idea James Gunn had during the production of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And the Disney mandate for Marvel Studios to create Disney+ content was a big part of his rolling Stone interview. He cited that movies rushing into production and having mandates to include a certain amount of movies and TV shows into a certain year is killing the quality that a lot of these projects could have behind them. And seeing how Disney pushed the creatives at Marvel Studios was extremely influential on how he wanted to craft the culture at DC Studios. He said, quote, "We don't have the mandate to have a certain amount of movies and TV shows every year, so we're going to put out everything that we think is of the highest quality. We're obviously going to do some good things and some not so good things, but hopefully on average everything will be as high quality as possible. Nothing goes before there's a screenplay I'm personally happy with," which was a huge problem DC was having in the 2010s. It seemed like there was a revolving door when it came to movies like The Flash that every other week had a new set of writers. But also we have the Ben Affleck Batman movie. That was a movie that went through so many different iterations that it killed any enthusiasm Ben Affleck had to actually make the movie. But the Batman was another point that he brought up in this interview. The main aspect being the rumors that Matt Reeves was fired or the movie was canceled altogether. He simply said that Matt Reeves is just focused on making a great screenplay, and that James Gunn is happy giving him the time he needs to make the best movie possible, which is exactly what they should be doing right now. Another aspect of Batman that they're working on right now is their own DC Universe iteration with the already announced Brave and the Bold movie. He said about that, quote, "Batman's my biggest issue in all of DC right now. And I'm not writing Batman, but I am working with the writer of Batman and trying to get it right, because he's incredibly important to DC, as is Wonder Woman. So outside of the stuff that I'm doing and the projects that are actively going, our two priorities are finishing our Wonder Woman and our Batman scripts. And the importance of going into production with a finished screenplay is what will separate DC from Marvel in the future. That's why the original slate of DC productions that they first unveiled 2 years ago has changed drastically. It's all related to what's finished, what's high quality, and what James Gunn thinks is going to be really good. And this article shouldn't just be seen as a hit piece against Marvel. Marvel should be looking at it as their competition telling them how they need to get things back on track. Despite the rocky relationship they had after 2018, there's clearly no animosity that James Gunn really has towards Marvel Studios. He knows that for superhero movies to continue to be successful, there's no battle between DC and Marvel. They should both be working on making the best movies and TV shows that they possibly can. And when Marvel does well, DC will also do well in turn. But I think that's gonna do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment down below letting me know what you think about this, and I will see you in the next video.